So welcome everybody. Sorry about the delayed start. We were experiencing technical difficulties, and we'll blame it on the weather. Mark, you can still hear me? Mark, Anna? Anna is online too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Great, great. All right, so today is going to be a couple of fun sessions. First off, I had requested last time that with the first two sessions, whatever questions you might have, if you would like to raise that, but we will do that in the second half of the first half, if that makes any sense, right? So today we are going to talk about specifically Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, and yoga in our daily yoga practice. How does it show up? So when we start our yoga practice, we start with the word Om, right? So how many people know what is Om? Jen. What is Om? Universal consciousness, a sound. What else? Yes, sir. Good job, Tony. Right. Among other things. Okay. So let's begin with Om. And in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it begins and it describes Om as Tasya Vachaka Pranava. It means he is known as the Pranava. Ladies, he could be she too. Whatever the consciousness is. So Tasya means him or that. Vachaka is connoted and Pranava is the sound itself. It's called Pranava, right? So he is known as the Pranava, Om. This is from the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. What do you call the consciousness where the all-knowing seed is present? How do you address it? Now, what does it mean by all-knowing seed? What is an all-knowing seed? Okay, if you take a mango, a real mango, right? And you take a clay mango, right? Painted beautifully to look exactly like the mango. And you plant both of them. Only one has the power to create something, to grow into a mango tree. So from our visual senses, both appear to be the same, but one has the seed. So Om is the seed of every other mantra or any other thing that you might perceive. All matter, consciousness, at the base of it, the inner core is supposed to be Om. That's what it says in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So Patanjali says Om is the nearest sound that it can be addressed with. When you say Om, the prana, the consciousness is complete. Om is the nearest sound that could be used to address the totality of consciousness. Okay? So that is kind of important there. Then it says what to do with Om. Tajapastadartha bhavanam. It means when you remember it, by repeating the word uttered gives you the feeling of the divine. But having said that, so it goes on to talk about japa. Japa is a repetition or chanting. It is a sound that can remind you of that state of feeling. For example, again, if you say mango, the word mango itself immediately gives you the idea and the feeling of the fruit. If you're fond of mangoes, your mouth starts watering, like mine does, always. There is an immediate reaction. You say Christmas or Diwali, it automatically generates the feeling of gifts and celebration. So the repetition of the word Om has that power to give you a remembrance of that divine consciousness or the super consciousness, right? So this means when you say Om, you remember the totality of the being that is the very core of this existence, which is free from misery and which is all love, unconditional love. The sound Om reminds you of the Lord of the creation, basically. So let's do something with this word Om today. Sorry, I'm sweating right now. So yeah. So like Tony referred earlier, how does Om appear and how do we say Om? How do we say Om? Normally, we end up saying Om, right? So Om comprises of 3 syllables, A, U, Ma, or Brahma, A, Vishnu, U, and Mahesha. Mahesha is another word for Shiva. So Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So the creator, the protector, and the destroyer, or the transformer. We normally call Shiva the destroyer, but it can also mean the transformer because there is no new growth without destruction. So transformation. Now, how do we check this out and how does it work in our daily life? So I want everybody to try this, okay? This little exercise, if you want to do that. I would like you to sit in a nice, comfortable posture. Take a couple of deep breaths. Alyssa, you may want to try this as well. Come, join us. Right. Take a couple of deep breaths. Just settle down. Now I want you to place your left hand around your heart and your right hand just below that, near the stomach. Take a deep breath in and just say ah, the first syllable. I want you to just say ah. So take a deep breath in. Ah. Now you feel a vibration somewhere in your body. Notice exactly where. Use just one hand in that area. Keep your left hand in that area, wherever you feel that vibration. Take your right hand off. Now, wherever you felt that vibration, keep your right hand above that part, right? And now I just want you to say the second syllable, ooh, okay? Take a deep breath in and go from the belly, not from the throat. Try to say that from the belly, okay? Just say, ooh. Do you notice the vibration climbs? Now you feel the vibration slightly higher than where it was, okay? Ooh, okay. Now keep your right hand where you felt that second vibration, okay? Now I want you to take your left hand and put it on top of that and just say the last word. Now, I don't want you to again use just the tongue. Use the entire body, okay? And just take a deep breath in. Where do you feel the vibration? You do? Try this. Put both your hands by the side of your neck and now do the same thing again. You feel it? All right. So, thing to remember, the stomach area is the area of creation. We eat food, all the energy is generated over there. Babies are created there. It's the area of creation. This area, an area higher than that, has the heart and the lungs, which are the regulatory function of the body, the preserver of the body itself. So heart circulates the blood, the lungs take care of all supplying oxygen all over the place, right? So that's the area of preservation. And the brain, or this area, is the area of transformation. Also throat, speech, right? So this area and this area, the brain area, is the area of transformation. So when you say Om properly in our daily life, what we are doing is simply creating energy, moving it through the area of preservation, and creating the transformation. So anything that you want to take, develop it, and move it into something else. You start with Om, you're creating energy, preserving, moving it through the area of preservation, and transforming. You see how beautiful that is? Just the one word Om. Now they say that the practice of Om, if you just do 5 minutes of Om incantation, it can help you with everything. It can control your blood pressure, heart rate, bring you peace, tranquility, and we use that in yoga a lot to start classes and to close classes. Now, there is a special way of saying Om, which I actually like. It's called Shankhanad, which I absolutely love. Now, a lot of people here, all of you do the Garudasana, right? You know the Garudasana? So there are two ways of doing the Garudasana. You can sit in the Padmasana itself if you like, or we are going to try this and just feel the power, okay? Or you can keep your legs crossed in pigeon and sit like this if you want to, right? If you all would like to try that. Hands go up in Garuda, crossed, right? Try it. You can try any side that you want. See, if you can't get the palms together, it's okay to just do it till here. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, the intention should be there. So you do this, you raise your hand. Now this is the Garuda doing the same thing, the Om, right? Take a deep breath in. The elbow, the crook of the elbow should be near your mouth. And you join this, take a deep breath in, and do the proper Om. Now, before you do that, uncross your hands. 1 second. Let me say how to pronounce Om. It's simple. You start with taking a deep breath. You open your mouth. You don't have to change anything. Just half close the mouth. Becomes oo. And fully close the mouth. Oo becomes No change. The tongue doesn't move. You see, a person who does not speak, who does not have a tongue, can also say Om. So it goes like this, basically. You get it? Just the mouth closing. And there are 3 parts to Om, and we try to do 1/3 as 1/3 as oo, and 1/3 as depending on your breath. Okay? So let's try that first. Before we do the Garudasana, we do take a deep breath in. feel the warmth in the head? All right, now try this, and you will see the difference. Do the Garudasana. Bring your hand up. The crook of the elbow goes in front of your nose and mouth. Take a deep breath in. And with all your might, with all the strength of your stomach, do the same thing, okay? And at my count, take a deep breath in. Do you feel that? Touch your forehead. See if you have sweat coming out from your forehead. Do you? All of you? If you do it properly, just this Om, if you practice properly, you will notice that you will have sweat coming out from the tips of your toes and sweat coming out from your brows. And you can feel that. You can generate so much energy with just the sound of Om inside your body. All right? So that's the power of Om, which is also described in the Bhagavad Gita, the sound of Pranav, the creation when Krishna is explaining things to Arjun. Okay? So that was fun, right? How to say Om. Okay, so what is the user of it? Then the understanding of your soul, the self happens, and there will be an absence of obstacles. That is, obstacles in your path will vanish. The witness consciousness dawns in you, and your mind gets totally transformed. And clarity begins in your thinking. The whole body undergoes a transformation, so full of prana. So when Krishna tells Arjuna, think of me and only me, and do all your work as you're offering it to me. This is what he means. Just the memory of the divine can remove obstacles from your path. Okay? When we say divine, it is the ultimate consciousness, right? Okay. We are going to go past this one, the day of the Brahma. This talks about tamas, rajas, and sattva, which I referred to in the last session. But what I'm going to do now is pause for a little bit. And before we go on to the yoga part of the Bhagavad Gita, questions from the previous session. We will take about 10-15 minutes to go through a summary of what happened last time. Yes. Yes. So the I knew somebody was going to ask me that. There are different theories to that. So what Jen is asking is that last time we spoke about, we tried this exercise of finding where the eye is in the body. And is there a significance if you find the eye in your body, middle, or in the head, right? And also the left side and the right side. So that was the question. So there are many theories about that, and it's actually just plain common sense. If you just look at yourself, now let's take Tom. Did you do that exercise last time? Where did you find the eye? In the center. Okay. Where did anybody find the eye in the head area? Right. Okay. Simple. Ruled by the heart, ruled by the mind. Man of action, man of heart. Emotions overrule thought processes in Tom's case. Is it true, sir? More practical. Thought processes, practical, involved with the world, worldly kind of a person. That's the general idea. You can go deeper into that, right? Now, for example, left side and right side, and that what the left side and the right side is. Now, in the mind, when you have somebody who felt the eye on the left side and the right side, again, it's the logical brain and the artistic brain, which you favor more. In yoga terms, it's the Ida and Pingala crossing over, right? Some are more Ida positive, some are more Pingala positive, left energies and right energies, sun energy, moon energy. Most of the time in women who are practicing yoga for a long time, you will find the eye centers around the heart chakra. It's very strong at the heart chakra because the heart, we become open to energies, we are sharing energy, we are doing this all the time and connecting to people. So you will find that sensation of eye, the physical sensation of eye, you will find close to the heart. If you actually concentrate on that, you need a little bit of sensitivity. That a lot of times people don't even feel that, and that's perfectly fine too. I mean, it takes a little bit of tuning to to get into that. It's the same as nobody asked me about the Om, the position of the Om. You know how you can use Om in your real life? When you normally say Om and you feel the vibration over here, here, and here, you will notice in a natural state. For some people, the ah is stronger. For some people, the oo is stronger. And some people, the is stronger, right? And there are three kinds of works that we perform. Some people are creators, artists, right? Like artists, or some, even programmers who create things, right? Their R is very strong. Some people are good managers, preservers, right? Who do not like to create new things, but you give them something that has been created and you give it to them, they'll execute it beautifully and they'll take care of it. Good managers, their ooh is very strong. And people who are like me, completely wacky, off their head, their is very strong because they have the power to transform. Oh, shit. Did I just say that? No, but they have the power to transform. You will notice that. And these are the people who can actually go around destroying things in order to create. Like somebody who takes apart a whole jigsaw puzzle and makes it look like something else altogether instead of the picture of the duck that it was supposed to be. Especially if you see that in children, you give them a little jigsaw puzzle of a duck and they will make it look like a flying vampire or an aeroplane, or their imagination just goes completely differently. These are the people who transform things. Now, how does it work in real life? It's very important if you have children or working with younger people. And if you can figure out how they say Om and which areas are stronger, you can actually balance the other two areas by training them, by giving them exercises in transformation, exercises in managing things. And that makes a balanced Om. So it's used in child development also from Vedic times. That this is what you should be doing to balance that out. So all of it is a science. Likewise, when we started this, we said it's Brahma Vidya, the science of the Supreme. It's not just somebody wrote something that this is the way it was scientifically devised for all of that. Make sense? Right. Any other question? Anybody has a question from the last couple of sessions? Wait. Oh, sorry, I have to uncross myself because I'm locked up.
So I could be mistaken. I have brain, all that. But in the first session, you said, kind of in summation, that there was, that it's metaphorical, right? That the 5 brothers on the one hand are indeed chakras, right? So why 5 and not 7? What is the deal? And all of that.
Today's entire session actually is on that. So what Anna asked is basically she jumped the gun, and today's session about Gita and yoga is all about the question that Anna just asked: why the 5 chakras? What are the 5 chakras? All of that we will handle today. Okay, so that's an entire session devoted to that. Good. Anything else? Yes, Jan. Wait. Let me give you the microphone so that actually just keep it.
I feel like I have to make my question more important. I have this. I don't want to be like so like heavy or dark about this, but I kind of feel like the Bhagavad Gita, with the focus being on like war and having to do shadow work or hard things, right? And it seems like that's kind of the catch to life. Like the joke is you get to appreciate and enjoy it more through trauma and through hardship. You break these walls that you've put in front of your heart, and then you're able to appreciate more and enjoy more, but you had to get there through traumas and hardships. You know what I mean? And it seems like the Bhagavad Gita almost kind of, in my mind, enforces that idea, like, well, you gotta do hard shit in order to evolve. And sometimes it's like, can I ever just evolve and transcend a little bit without having to always go through the mud? Does it always have to be war and struggle?
Nice. That's a beautiful question, and a lot of people, especially in the West, say that Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, kind of glorifies war itself. The Bhagavad Gita glorifies war itself, more like it glorifies day-to-day involvement in the samsara, right? So there was a couple of slides in the previous one, if you noticed. We said that the Bhagavad Gita is actually not a discourse at Kurukshetra, which is the battlefield, but it is a discourse in Dharma Kshetra. It's the field of Dharma, which is inside us. Okay. So the important thing to understand is, in that, we went through what is reality. Purusha and Prakriti, the definition of that. The reality that we perceive lives here. It's a perception. We talked about Maya and illusion, right? It's a perception. So is that war really happening? That's the first question to ask. Are you really in that war? Are you really living in this world, physically feeling all of those things? When that suffering is there, here is where you perceive it, right? So is it really true? In Buddhism, they say, no mud, no lotus, right? Is it really true that the mud exists? And more importantly, is it really true that the lotus exists? You see, the funny part of this is we travel this path to overcome suffering in our day-to-day life and try to understand this duality and how things happen and what we can do. End of the whole thing, The simple absolute reality that it points to is that there is no path and there is no suffering. But we have to travel that path to arrive at that, because knowledge, as we went through that, Jnana Yoga, it does not stay with us. We come back into our body and we start living into this world and start feeling with that, right? So we can't permanently stay in that zone of knowledge alone. That needs to get embodied 24/7. And the Karma Yoga that the Bhagavad Gita teaches us is a process, an easier process of embodying that one true reality, if you want to say, the Satchidanand, basically. So it tells us that you can now, instead of living in that knowledge and trying to stick to that knowledge all the time, look at it this way. If I am living in that knowledge cerebrally all the time, all this doesn't matter. Nothing will bother me, no pains, I'll be blissful all the time. But what happens is that the mortal body, it keeps bringing me back to this state of separation. There is me, there is you. Moment the separation starts, everything else starts. The drama of Prakriti keeps on going, right? All that starts happening. So we can't stay there. So what the Bhagavad Gita says is, okay, so here is Jnana Yoga, but you can't stay there forever. So here is another way to do the same thing, and that is Karma Yoga. So you stay in this with that understanding that there is this absolute reality which I am not capable or able to stay in all the time. But how do I conduct my affairs in this world so that it causes me less grief, or I achieve moksha, nirvana, salvation, whatever you want to call it? So you may choose to call it that you have to go through all this pain and suffering to go there. And the question there is, how much pain and suffering are you creating for yourself by thinking about that? Like, by literally thinking that, do I have to go through all of this? If I am in touch with that absolute reality, that this is all Maya, right? Chances are, theoretically, we can say that there is no suffering for me. But how do you experience that? And that's Karma Yoga. Does that make sense? Like, it is not trying to glorify war. It is not trying to glorify uh, going through all the pain and suffering. It's telling us that there is pain and suffering that we are going through because of such and such reason, and you don't need to. And then the rest is our practice, is how we stick to that. Right? It's like this. When you have a realization, a certain realization, all you can do is like, huh, I wasted so many years running after that, right? And that's just it. Like, we have to go through that to arrive at that point where we can say, oh, we wasted all of that. And then it doesn't exist anymore. Right? Make sense? Follow up? Any follow-up question to that? True. There's a scientific explanation to that. There are two parts to what you said. One is Newton's law of inertia. Every object continues in its state of rest or uniform motion until and unless acted upon by an external unbalanced force. Right? No. We can talk for days on that, Don. Let me just finish this, and then I will come back to your in your vacuum. Right? Because that law applies in the physical world too. Right? Or doesn't? Does it apply in the physical world? Is there vacuum right here? So it works here too. Okay? It will not continue. Yeah, there has to be some kind. So like you said, if somebody is in that continued state of bliss, right, he will continue in that until something happens to bring him back to this world. Or somebody is in this state of sorrow, something has to poke him or her to bring him into that reality of that things could be different, right? So that is human nature. The second part of that is our brains are built with negativity bias. You see, the Bhagavad Gita, written down by human beings, the Bible, written down by human beings, maybe divinely inspired, correct? Our own stories are all human stories, right? Now, if I tell you, think of something bad that happened to you yesterday, immediately we'll have 1,500 different things that went bad. If I tell you, think of something good that happened, like, difficult to recall, right? The good things. There is a reason again for that. The brain, because of its function of self-preservation, is supplied with something called a negativity bias. It's supposed to remember the negative or the harmful things, real or perceived, in the environment, because its function is to stay alert and protect you. Therefore, the negativity bias, and therefore all the hero's journey. The hero conquers everything to achieve something and get back. And that makes for better reading, better press than, oh, I was very happy and then I became happier. Right? So that's just human nature. And you know, they can be pretty. Yes, Don, you were saying something. Yeah. So what Don is saying is too loud. So that is a topic that I did not want to get into because it gets into reincarnation. No, it's about, it goes into the murky waters, I like to call it, of reincarnation and human life. Because reincarnation, so what Don is saying is that you can be born with accumulated karma of the past. And many of us, right. Right. I mean, we can. All right. Okay. One more question before we break. Okay, there was one question that I was hoping somebody would ask, but you had something? Karma yoga. the actual explanation of the three parts of karma yoga that we have. So why does jnana yoga does not work? Why does jnana yoga does not work for everybody? Krishna explains three kinds of yoga, right? Jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, and karma yoga. Jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge. Bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion. And karma yoga, the yoga of action. And then Arjuna asks him that which is the right path for me? And Krishna then explains to him the problems of Jnana Yoga, the problems of Bhakti Yoga, and the problems also inherent in Karma Yoga. And that's kind of the important lesson from the Bhagavad Gita itself. So Jnana Yoga, what's the reason why Jnana Yoga doesn't work? The yoga of knowledge. We just discussed that when Jen asked that question. We just discussed that. It's impossible to remain in that zone. It's like you get hungry, you eat food, you're sated, and then the hunger comes back, right? So you come in contact with the world again, and it's impossible to stay in that zone of knowledge all the time. Or the elevated consciousness, or in sthit pragya, as they say it, established in nirvana all the time. So you can get these moments of clarity and then you come back, and you get moments of clarity and you come back, right? So there is that inherent issue with Jnana Yoga. What's the inherent issue with Bhakti Yoga? Chanting and devotional songs and thinking of God all the time, right? So what is the inherent problem with Bhakti Yoga? Sorry? Right, but you see people chanting Radha Krishna at the airport too, which Tony, uh, uh, right. So yes, there are issues, worldly issues with that you can't do it all the time. Ultimately, Bhakti Yoga is supposed to be 24/7. Every part of you needs to be in devotion of that. So Ramdas, he was a perfect example of what he tried to teach, Bhakti Yoga. He was a Hanuman Bhakt. So Hanumana is a path of Bhakti through Rama. So that's an example. But can it be done? Yeah. I mean, Ramdas has been a good example, I guess. But is it possible for us to remain in that all the time? It's called Chintan, basically. Chintan means thinking of God all the time, seeing God in everything. So then comes Karma Yoga, yoga of action. Now, yoga of action works much better for us householders in the sense that it defines two types of karma, nishkama karma and sakama karma. Now, this is very important to understand that. It's karma with no desire of fruit or no attachment to the fruit of the action. And sakama karma is karma with a desire to the fruit of action, but within the realms of guidelines of dharma. You get me? So it is action with desire. Everything is not attachment to desire, work without attachment to the fruits of the action. Bhagavad Gita says you can do sakama karma, which means you can be doing work with a desire for result. Simple thing. If there was no desire for result, beautiful things like music, art, poetry, science, technology, architecture, everything would disappear. Farming, human beings. human beings would disappear, right? So again, but here the point to be noted is selfless. The selfless part again comes into, so as far as possible, it recommends that it should be selfless desire, right? The other thing that Sakama Karma warns against is the attachment to those desires, which is, so you do something, you write poetry, for example. Like me, I love writing poetry. But if I get attached to my poetry is going to be acceptable by everybody, and I feel very bad if people say, what is this nonsense you have written? Then it's a problem because I'm now creating suffering for myself. But if I create poetry, I have a desire to create poetry, but I'm not attached to what the results or repercussions of that, or I'm not waiting for validation from somebody, then it's fine. In that, the note about validation, if you're getting validation, it's absolutely good to feel good about it. But if you're not getting validation and you're going into like, oh my God, I'm a disaster, then it's a problem. So Karma Yoga has these facets. So what are the problems with practicing Karma Yoga? Number one, concentration, right? We don't have concentration, scattered mind, Kriya, right? So there, the practice of meditation comes in Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga has portions of Jnana Yoga in that. Meditation teaches you to concentrate, not about getting rid of the thoughts. Meditation is about focusing your thoughts in a single direction while you are doing your daily work, undistracted. That's the benefit of meditation in Karma Yoga, how we apply into daily life. And therefore, Karma Yoga and practice of meditation and yoga help us in our regular lives, right? And that's why we are in this phase of learning about Bhagavad Gita and yoga, right? So I'm not going to get into the day of Brahma or the creation or how it is. I'll tell you in short, we spoke about Prakriti and Purusha last time, right? Prakriti comprises of 5 sense organs, 5 sense receptors, 5 organs of action, karmendriyas, jnanendriya, 5 elements, air, water, earth, fire, space. That makes it 20. 3 portions of the mind. Sounds like a recipe for a cake, right? 3 portions of the mind, which is buddhi, manas, and ahankara, the eye maker, all of that. So 23. That 23 is the prakriti, nature. Now, these 23 things are acted upon by these 3 gunas. Now, guna means multiplicant, something that can multiply, right? 3 different kinds of energy. One energy is called tamas, which is inertia, unconscious dumping ground. The second one is called rajas, which is activity. And the third one is called sattva, which is harmony. And different people have this in different proportions. And these 3 energies, when they act upon the prakriti, it gives rise to creation of all the things that we see around us. And the same person may have different portions of tamas, rajas, and sattva at different times in life. And that's what determines what goes on with us, right? And that and Purusha, or the universal consciousness, is the whole play. So Prakriti combines with the Purusha, That's what you call moksha. Moksha. Yeah. The union between Prakriti and Purusha. Or Shiva and Shakti. Or yin and yang. Or whatever you want to call it. Okay. All three are present at some level of awareness and their proportions change. Their interplay is the dynamics of personality. The self is the witness of this interplay. The self, Purusha, consciousness, is the witness of this interplay. Because personality is a process, it is possible to change habitual patterns, and that is the central principle of yoga. So tamas, rajas, and sattva, because they exist, or let's put it this way in scientific terms, neuroplasticity. Because there is neuroplasticity, it is possible to use the mind to change the mind.
Those three things, they're not the 24th thing, right?
No, no.
What causes those to change in like magnitude or whatever? Like what causes those to be like acting on you in one time and the other thing more at another time?
Right. They are called the basic qualities of the primordial energy. And it says here, evolution of primordial Prakriti begins when balance of nature is disturbed. So let's put it in a scientific way. When the fabric of space-time continuum is disturbed, the three energies get acted upon. They originally exist as balance, as sattva. You go here, it is tamas, you go here, it is rajas. And then it comes back in balance. So the interplay between that is what creates. Yeah.
Is the suffering of addiction in tamas?
Okay, so tamas has laziness, materiality, inertia, darkness, heaviness. All of those qualities are associated with that. If you see, this is the no mud, no lotus structure. Right? Yes, it is part of tamas. See, activity, you have to be careful. Overactivity is also not good because you go to the other extreme, right? Sattva is where we are trying to be at, sattvic food. So Bhagavad Gita actually gives you prescriptions for what you should eat, how you should live. Like even eating, what kind of stuff you should be eating is described in the Bhagavad Gita, right? A lot of it is taught in Ayurveda, which is the ancient science of food and how to treat diseases. All that is shown in that. So there are food categories which are called tamasic and sattvic, and rajasic food. So, for example, tamasic foods. What are tamasic foods? I'll give you an example. Number one, onion. Onion is the number one tamasic food. It brings out, when you eat an onion, peppers, it brings out the heat inside you. It creates heat. And it kind of initiates other drives as well. Tamasic, garlic, it's tamasic. Sometimes it might be required to balance certain things in your body medically. But initially it is a tamasic because it's used to balance something which is too much on the rajasic side. So to bring it down, you may be needing garlic or whatever. So it's not forbidden, but it's just categorized as a tamasic food, right?
Is it true that some people drink like onion juice or like especially like when working on the chakras? Like I've just heard that. I don't know if that's actually.
I'm not aware, but if I think about it, why not? I've heard of stranger things in life. So might be possible. I'm not sure, but I mean, we can look into that in a cart. Okay. All right. Airbender? Yeah, there you go. So yoga, now we come to the beautiful part of it, yoga. Those who disidentify themselves with the conditions of perception in Maya wake up into a higher mode of knowing in which the unity of life is apprehended directly. Jen, this is for you. Those who disidentify themselves with the conditions of perceptions in Maya wake up into a higher mode of knowing in which the unity of life is apprehended directly. Now, this statement is actually very, very powerful to get into all of that, right? Condition of perception. Now, what did we say? Our perception is our reality in this, right? So we are perceiving reality. So automatically it follows that we know that this reality is only a perception. If you are okay with that, then you proceed to the next step. If you are still saying that whatever you perceive is your absolute reality, then you don't need to proceed further into looking at what that unity of life is, right? So if I disidentify with that fact that whatever I perceive is my absolute complete reality, there is nothing else. Whatever I touch, feel, this is it. No further arguments, Your Honor. Let's proceed. I mean, right? And there are people who do that, and they don't have any suffering or not have suffering. I don't know, but this is not for them. And because we are pursuing this, is because we believe that this reality that we see is only our perception, right? Therefore, we are going forward. If I know everything, then there's no point in going forward, right? So, those who disidentify themselves with the conditions of perception in Maya, Maya is the illusion, wake up into a higher mode of knowing in which the unity of life is apprehended directly. So, the unity of life is apprehended directly means what? It becomes your own experience. It's an experienced reality. And that experience comes through the experience of, you may want to call it enlightenment or moksha or nirvana, right? That experience has to be apprehended directly by you yourself. It's not going to be goosebumps on your skin, because this skin is still a perceived reality. When you apprehend directly, the object of apprehension and the subject both disappear. You get what I'm saying? So that's when you realize that unity, the truth, consciousness bliss that we call, right? But it has to be a direct apprehension, which in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives Arjuna divine vision to see that for a little while, and then he takes it back, kind of. But that's a story, right? We all have that moment where we feel that we are one with the universe, and then we come back, right? That's what it is talking to. The disciplines for achieving this are called yoga, as in the state of mind. Now here it is referring to yoga as the state of mind, not yoga the practice. Yoga as a state. So what does yoga as a state mean? As a state of union, the realization that you are already one. We are not trying to achieve any union here. We are already in union. It's just the realization of apprehending it directly that we are in union. That state of mind is called yoga. The experience itself is called samadhi. Now, samadhi literally translated sam adhi. It means completely absorbed into that state or given up in that state, or you blended completely. It's like running your blender with all fruits mixed together and it's like one gorgeous mass. No, not really. But samadhi means completely. Now in yoga, what is our process of samadhi? Dharana, dhyana, and then samadhi, right? Dharana is intention to concentrate on something. Dhyana is continuous concentration. I gave you that example, right? Dharana is like I'm focusing on um, a point of light, and then I focus and I go off, focus and I go off, right? And then dhyana is like continuous focus on that point of light. And I gave that example when you transfer oil from one container into another, when you pour it, you see how the flow is? It's one uninterrupted flow. So dhyana is that state. And when that state continues, you enter into samadhi where all of that disappears. And that those three together, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi together are called samayam. Samayam is the process of going into that state, the three, right? The state attained is called moksha or nirvana. We never really encounter the world. What we experience is our own nervous system, right? Yoga is not about eternal life. It is about sensible life. Make sense? Next, why yoga? Now, this might answer uh, Jen's question a little bit more. Yoga's impact on psychosomatics. Mental phenomena and biochemical events take place in the same field. Thoughts are real and have real tangible consequences. Right? Now, this is the thing that we get very, very enchanted by, and oh, the power of attraction. Oh, what is the law of attraction, the secret, manifesting stuff. Now, learning all of that is coming to that conclusion that thoughts are real. Why do I keep saying words have the power to create? That's why they're called what? Spelling. Create spells, magic spells, right? Thoughts are real and have real tangible consequences. Thoughts. That's where everything gets controlled. Sankhya describes thoughts as packets of potential energy, which grow more and more solid when favorable conditions are present and obstacles are removed. Favorable conditions, the state of yoga, the state of being in meditation, the smooth flow and obstacles are removed. If you're pouring oil from one container into another and there is a little bump in the nozzle, the oil is also going to jump, right? Like think of that as removing the obstacles. It's like achieving a smooth flow, right? They become desires, then habits, then ways of living with physical consequences. Thoughts become desires, habits, ways of living with physical consequences, right? Bad thoughts too, negative thoughts too. I mean, we don't use the word bad, but in this mortal world, I slip into that mistake very often, and I still say things like good and bad. But unhelpful thoughts can also become desires and habits and ways of living with physical consequences, right? Seed can only grow into one kind of tree. Thoughts can produce effects of the same nature. An avocado seed will never produce my favorite mango tree. So much is the problem. Just in case you're wondering, I'm very fond of mangoes. So that's why all my mango references, okay? So a mango seed will always produce a mango tree, right? And then it ends with yad bhavam tad bhavati, which basically means as you intend, so shall you manifest. Or As you intend, so shall it manifest. So thoughts have real power. So important thing to note in this whole thing is, are we now convinced that we are at home equally in the physical world as we perceive it and in the world of consciousness that we are trying to bridge the gap into? That is the most important factor in learning or going through the Bhagavad Gita or any spiritual process. Is this the only reality, or there is something else beyond this? One. And two, am I comfortable with that? That is a huge question, because otherwise all this is nothing but an academic exercise. We can say and talk and go back and forth as much as we want, and uh, end of the day, what it says here, mental phenomena and biochemical events take place in the same field. In other words, somebody had that beautiful line. He said, is this a dream or am I part of somebody else's dream? And why is it so hard to believe? I can touch this, I can feel it, but I can't touch my thoughts. Right? So it's important to get comfortable with the idea. I'm not saying that you believe in anything or all this, but the important part of this, the Bhagavad Gita basically explains this to Arjuna, that what you see as war, what you see as killing people, all this has no value. These are just, you are just an instrument of performing certain deeds. In the mental field or in the mental phenomenal field, all this is all predestined and ordained and everything has already happened. This is how Krishna explains it to Arjuna, right? I take another take on that same thing, is that if you believe that thoughts are real and have tangible consequences, right? Aren't you then the creator of your own universe? Aham Brahmasmi. That's what it means. I am Brahma, or the creator, or the Brahman. See, here's the thing. Whether you believe in duality or non-duality, suppose this is me in the dual world, and there is this superconscious. We did this exercise last time with that levels of mind, soul, and spirit, right? At the base of it is matter and life. So we are now in the different field. So let's just talk about mind, which is an individual, and soul, which is kind of a individual but still bigger, and spirit, which is like the whole super consciousness, if you want to call it, right? Whether I'm connecting to it or I perceive that to be one with me, in both cases, doesn't a unity exist? Whether you say, I am not, for want of a better word, use the term God, right? I am not God. I am this individual Atma, and there is this God. Yet, I am connecting to that. You take a small lake, and you take another small lake or a big lake, and you dig a ditch, and you connect the small lake to the big lake. Isn't that now one lake? Beautiful. Very, very nice. So Alyssa says that's where perception comes in, whether it's actually one lake or two lakes with a channel. And that is the degree to which our process takes us into. So it doesn't matter whether you look at it as one lake or two lakes with a channel. Just the fact that the two lakes with a channel are also connected will give you a different insight into the nature of reality. Just the fact that it's two lakes with a channel gives you the confidence that the two lakes can be connected, that there is a possibility of a connection, that you are not a lone separate entity by itself, and that a connection is possible. And therefore, all these other questions stop and you become comfortable that there is yoga possible. So whether you believe from the point of view of non-duality or duality, yoga is still a possible thing, right? So that's all that we need to get comfortable with to begin with. Because see, at the end of all of this is the real practice of yoga itself, where you have your own experiential reality created, where you perceive certain things in a different way. Till you have that experience, till you have that embodiment, I can sit here for days and keep on talking about it. It doesn't mean anything. But to get to that point, it's important to understand that to get to that point is possible, first of all. Two, there is a point that you can get to. All those things have to be considered before you start on that journey, right? So we look at it like that, and then we proceed in the practice of yoga. And Patanjali, he starts with what? Atha yoganushasanam. And now the discipline of yoga in this moment. Second one, what? Yoga chitta vriddhi nirodha. Stopping the expansions of this mind stuff. And third line, tada drishte swarupa. Then, and then when you stop this expansion of mind, when you stop feeling that there is this channel, then the seer abides in itself. In 3 lines, you can finish yoga. Rest is all practice. How do you achieve that? Right? So we are going to come back to, we take a, it's 2:30, we take a 10-minute break, and then we are going to come back to the fun part, the Bhagavad Gita part.
Will you go back one slide for me? I want to take a picture of that. I think that's the most beautiful image I've ever seen.
I know, I was looking at it.
Yeah, seriously, that's me, my screen's there.
What's the significance of the flute player on your other slide?
That's Krishna.
Ah, okay.
That's Krishna. Krishna is always denoted with a flute. So the flute has a significance too. It's a hollow bamboo with number of holes. So now that we are all experts on the Bhagavad Gita, let's have some fun. So we all presume, or at least I did, that the Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata and it's a story and these things happened and or didn't happen, but it's a story and we can take some lessons from that and apply them to our life. But it can go deeper than that if you want to look into it a little bit deeper. And how does yoga get impacted by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and what we can take from there. So let's look at the story once again. The war was between two sides. Is that recording on? Good. I think Jen was probably trying to log in as well. So welcome, Jen. Can she hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. So what I was saying was that it's not just, okay. So let's look at the players in the war of Mahabharata. Who were the players? There were two sides, right? So on one side is the king of Hastinapur. The place is called Hastinapur. Hasti means existence in Sanskrit. Hastinapur. Pur is the town or the place or the abode, right? Hastinapur, the place of existence. Names itself have so many meanings to that, right? So the king of Hastinapur, against which the Pandavas are fighting, is this guy called Dhritarashtra. His name is Dhritarashtra. And he is blind from birth. He has 100 sons. On the other side is Pandu. So there is Dhritarashtra and there is Pandu. Pandu has 5 sons. So the 5 sons are fighting against the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. So 5 sons of Pandu fighting against the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. We clear? Blind king, Dhritarashtra, the father of Pandavas, his name is Pandu. Okay? So what do these things mean? And how does suddenly the Bhagavad Gita transcend into a certain, totally different realm? Dhritarashtra, the blind king of Hastinapur, represents our mind. More than that, it represents our blind mind without the intellect's discriminative power. Hence the blindness. Right? So a mind without intellect. Now here the mind that we are talking about comprises of the term mind denoting all its components. Like when we talk of mind in Vedic terms, mind comprises of manas, buddhi, and ahankara. So, but here when we use the term mind, it means the totality of what we call our mind. So the blind king, Dhritarashtra represents, so he was blind from birth. So this represents the mind without the discerning power of the intellect. So if you don't use your intellect, your mind is blind. You get it? His wife was called Gandhari. Okay, Gandhari right now, Gandhar is in Afghanistan. She was the princess of Gandhar. That was part of the Indian continent at that point of time. When she married Dhritarashtra, she decided in her wifely duties that since my husband is blind, I'm going to spend my life blindfolded. So she put a tape around her eyes to remain blind throughout her life. Now, what does that represent? His wife Gandhari represents the intellect. The intellect can see. However, when the intellect gets smitten with emotion, it gets blinded. See how that applies to our lives? This is indicated by Gandhari blinding herself after being married to Dhritarashtra. The result is devastation and destruction. The blind mind has got many desires and tendencies in it and is the abode of emotions and feelings. Okay, now we go further. 5 are the senses of knowledge or perception: the eyes, nose, ears, tongue, and skin. These are called Gyan Indriyas, the perceptive organs, right? The other 5 are the senses of action: mouth, hands, feet, genital organs, and anus. These are called the Karmendriyas. So Gyanendriyas and Karmendriyas, they make 10. Sense organs and organs of action, 10. There are 10 directions in the world: north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. That makes 8. Up and down. That makes 10. So when these 10 organs run in these 10 different directions, they run amok. They gave rise to 100 product. 10 into 10 is 100. So the 100 Kaurava brothers represent the 100 different things that get created by these senses running in 10 different directions. Each sense organ and action organ running in 10 different directions. So basically, without any guidance or without any aim, they're running in 10 different directions. So these 100 Kaurava brothers, which are fighting on one side, are the 100 directions our sense organs and action organs take in real life. You can do this, you can do that, you can do that, you can do this, all of these directions that it's going into, right? These are called, they give rise to 100 desires, thoughts, ambitions, expectations, and dreams. These are the children of the mind and symbolized as the 100 sons in Mahabharata. The children of the mind, the 100 sons. Now we come to the first son, Duryodhan. The first son is Duryodhan, Dhritarashtra's eldest son. He's the guy who fought with all these guys and didn't want to give anything, the main guy, the first son. The main thought of the mind is always I, me, mine, ahankara. This is called the ego. So he represents the first and foremost thought of the mind, the ego. The mind cannot control the ego very easily. Therefore, Dhritarashtra couldn't control Duryodhan. That is why Dhritarashtra couldn't control Duryodhan and always was swayed by his son's wishes. Du means difficult and Yodhana means to fight. Ego is something that was difficult to fight against. It is the ego feeling or I thought that craves and falls into addiction. All mental and physical problems stem from the I feeling. The I feeling, instead of helping the body, ruthlessly rips off health of the body. I want to experience spicy taste. No matter my stomach hurts and I develop ulcers. I want to experience to refresh with coffee, no matter if it dehydrates my body and makes my body cells suffer in thirst. I want to experience dull-mindedness with alcohol, no matter it hurts my liver and all other body organs. I want to do something even though my doctor has asked me not to because I already booked it, right? The moment the ego gets the mind to dance to its whims and tunes, the body is completely forgotten. That is why Dhritarashtra was caught completely in the whims of Duryodhan and gave in to most of his wants. As a king, he did not listen to his subjects, which represent the body. The blind mind always tries to give importance to its ego. Dhritarashtra wants his son to be crowned as the prince of the kingdom. Like that, you can find so many instances of how the mind empowers the ego and the ego runs rampage in our mind. This is so beautifully portrayed in the Mahabharata with various events. Make sense? The ego running amok. That's Duryodhan. Duryodhan. Now we come to Pandu, the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, who's the father of the Pandavas. The younger brother of Dhritarashtra represents wisdom, which was represented by his white color. Pandu was white. Pandu basically means white. White. So we can say that the new incoming president will be living in Pandu house, the White House, which was represented by his white color. The wisdom matures with experience and hence gives the ruling power to the blind mind until the children of wisdom are ready. His wife Kunti represents the power of dispassion, while his second wife Madri represents the attachment to dispassion. Pandu has 5 sons, 3 sons with Kunti and 2 sons with Madri. The sons of Pandu represent the 5 elements, which in turn represent the 5 energy chakras in our spinal column. So Pandu has 2 wives. Kunti, who has 3 sons, Yudhishthir, Arjuna, and Bhim. And second wife was Madri, who has 2 sons, Nakul and Sahadev. Okay? You don't need to make notes. These will be emailed to you, so you'll have all of this. Okay? So the sons of Pandu, they represent the 5 earthly chakras that we have. You see the 7 chakras that we have. You asked me earlier, right? These are the actual chakras of action. The 6th chakra, the 3rd eye chakra, and the Sahasrara chakra are chakras of consciousness. These are the chakras that we can work on. And how we can work on, we'll come to that. So these are the 5 earthly chakras that we in our human body can work on. Yes, it does work on the 6th chakra and the 7th chakra. It takes energy into that. But we have to work on these 5. So the battle of Mahabharata is the war of these 5 chakras not being completely functional versus the 100 directions the mind is taking them to. You see what is happening here? The 100 dreams, thoughts, etc., that happen, and these 5 energy chakras being depleted because of these 100 things happening over here. That's what we are looking at. That is the battle of the inner self with the higher self, right? The structure of the spinal cord also shows a differentiation supporting the division of the 3 sons of Kunti with the 2 sons of Madri. So the spinal column, actually, if you notice, it goes like this and then it turns, right? Okay. The spinal column extends to the level of the lumbar vertebrae as one solid structure. From the lower lumbar to the coccyx, the spinal nerves with their ganglia extend downward like the tail of a horse and has been named cauda equina, horse's tail. It has the same origin. So basically the spinal cord, the cauda equina has the same origin. So the 3 chakras, the top 3 chakras, the 3 sons of Kunti are part of the spinal column, and the other 2 sons of Madri, even though they are connected, they are actually part of the cauda equina, right? It has the same origin, as in having the same father, but are at the same time different. They are the location of the 2 sons of Madri. Also significant to the spiritual aspirant is the function of the first 3 chakras versus the last 2. The first three are important in the inner spiritual activities of the spiritual aspirant. The lower two are important for the purification of his external activities. So the base chakras, which are the two base chakras? Muladhara and Swadhisthana. What are the symbols, the elements connected with them? They're the grounding chakras, right? The ground chakras. So what? Earth and water. Earth and water. You see the similarity, how it flows together? Earth and water are for the external activity. So whatever we do, first thing, what are we told? Get grounded. Important for that. Yudhishthira was the first son of Pandu, the eldest son. Now, Yudhi means battle, and Sthira means tranquil or undisturbed. Yudhishthira is the symbol of peace and the sky or ether element of Panchabhutas. Panchabhutas are the five elements. Sky is the bridge of transcendence to the conscious state and represents as throat chakra, Vishuddhi chakra. Ether remains unchanged and undisturbed by the violent play of nature's forces. So Vishuddhi chakra is Yudhishthira. Okay? Tranquil in battle, undisturbed. Now, since he was the eldest brother, why did Krishna not teach the Bhagavad Gita to Yudhishthira? And teach it to Arjuna? Sorry? That's right. Yudhishthira, by description itself, is an unchanged element. Even though he was the eldest brother, he was very tranquil in everything. When you want to achieve something in a battle, for instance, you give the charge to your most active person. And Arjuna represents that. He's the fire element. We'll come to that. So if you really want to win the battle, the commander has to be somebody dynamic. Yudhishthira, even though he was the eldest brother, he was more tranquil, even-tempered. Right? So therefore, he teaches it to the commander of the Pandava armies, the guy who's all fire, who wants to achieve everything, right? Second chakra, Bhima, the strongest person. Okay? Bhima is prana, the power of vitality, the air element in the dorsal center or the Anahata chakra, heart chakra. He is the son of Vayudeva, the god of wind. The aspiring sadhaka practices his pranayama that is controlled by this center, thereby calming the breath and controlling the mind and all of its sense objects. The breath has got such a strength that it can destroy all tendencies of the mind. That is why Bhima kills the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. So even though Arjuna is the main commander, Bhima was the strongest. And he is the one who kills all 100 of Dhritarashtra's sons. All 100. Air. The power of air. Just tell me. Yeah. Pranayama. Prana means air or the vital energy. Ayama is taking it in or moving it through your body, right? Ayama, the science of bringing it in is pranayama. The breath also brings the awareness of oneness. The ignorance of duality dissolves in the purity of love and is represented as heart chakra, Anahata chakra. Now we come to Arjuna. Arjuna, the third, represents the, oh, there's a word missing, element fire. Represents fire element. Oh no, it's not missing. I was just not reading it. Arjuna, the third son, represents fire element. Rajju. Rajju means rope or bondage. And Na means no. This represents that we are really not bonded but free. Arjuna represents the liberating thoughts in us and brings peace. Arjuna is the inquiring mind. The inquiring mind burns like fire and destroys the darkness of ignorance. This burning fire is what needs to be given direction. And that is why, out of the 5 brothers, Arjuna was taught the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna represents mastering the heat of power, of senses symbolized as the navel chakra, Manipura chakra. This center is for the purification of mind and body, making intense meditation possible. The Manipura chakra, the solar plexus. Why is it called solar plexus? Fire, sun, right? Makes sense now? Every word is so important in Sanskrit. The other 2 brothers, Nakul and Sahadeva, are called the Ashwini twins because they were born of the gods Ashwini. Ashwini are the physicians to the gods. So I have a story here before we go forward. Pandu's wife, Kunti, was given a boon that she could call any god, okay, and get a son from them. So Yudhishthira, Arjuna, and Bhima are representing sons of the fire god, the air god, right? So she calls those gods. Now the second wife, Madri, also asks Kunti to help her. So Madri calls the Ashwini twins. And that's why she has these twins, Nakul and Sahadev. Nakul is adherence, the power to obey rules of dharma, the water element in the sacral center, or Swadhisthana chakra. Adherence to dharmic principle allows the sadhaka to control mental tendencies. Adhering to the Sadeva is restraint, the earth element in the coccyx center or the Muladhara chakra. He is the power of resistance by which restless outer sense organs can be controlled. All the 5 sense organs, right? For that, we require grounding. And the base chakras, I feel and I am. Those are the lines for that, right? So this is for the Ashwini twins. Now we come to the most interesting personality in Mahabharata, who was the cause of the war and has to be a woman, sorry. Her name is Draupadi. Draupadi, so now here is this interesting story of Draupadi. Draupadi is also called Agneya. Agneya means fireborn. Remember Game of Thrones? Fireborn. You know where he gets all that from? He's a big student of Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata. Right? So, the story of Draupadi is kind of important before we get into the thing. So during the Mahabharata war, the Pandavas were in exile, living in the jungle. That was part of, it's part of a different part of Mahabharata, but what it had to do was, Duryodhan basically told these guys that they had to live in exile for 14 years before he will give their land back. So these brothers, they go into exile. While they were in exile with their mother, they disguised themselves as common people and went and did certain jobs. Draupadi's father, Drupad, he held a Swayamvar. Now, what is a Swayamvar? Swayamvar is like a competition where the winner gets the bride. in ancient India, all the princes from various provinces would come and compete in any kind of a tournament. And whoever was the winner would get the hand of the maiden. So Draupadi's father had this Swayamvar for Draupadi, and all the princes came to compete. And Arjuna also went and competed in that. And it was a competition of archery. And as we know, Arjuna was the best archer and he won, right? So as a prize, he received Draupadi. So he brought her home. Now his mother Kunti was in the kitchen with her back towards the door. Now the 5 brothers during exile, what they used to do was to go out and collect alms, and whatever they brought home, they would share and eat together. That was their livelihood. So Arjuna literally enters the room and says to his mom, "Hey mom, look what I got." And the mom, without turning around, she says, "Share it with your brothers." So Draupadi, technically by that line, became the wife of all 5 Pandavas. So Draupadi was married to all 5. Now, what does that mean? Okay. It means somebody had a very active imagination in the Bhagavad Gita. Yes, apart from that, it means something else altogether. She was the wife of all the 5 Pandavas, which means she stays with each of them for some time and moves on to the other. She represents the feminine Kundalini energy, which travels through the spinal column to all the chakras on her path. Kundalini, which is metaphorically represented as Draupadi, the 5-hooded element snake, she is the one who connects the individual soul to the universal soul. The connecting cord between Atma and Paramatma. The fire that propels it is called Kundalini Shakti. That is the reason she was born out of fire. Draupadi is thus wedded to the 5 elements, which makes the man. It is said that Bhima, air, was the one who loved Draupadi the most. That is why breath is used to awake the Kundalini inside you. So you use Pranayama Shakti to awake Kundalini. The Kundalini travels from the base chakra right up till the Vishuddhi chakra, and then takes it through the 6th and the 7th chakras to create the union with the universal soul. Make sense now? How Bhagavad Gita suddenly becomes a whole treatise on yoga of what we are trying to do. So now Bhima is important in here. Why is it said that Bhima loved her the most? Because before the war, Draupadi was insulted in the court of Dhritarashtra. And Bhima swore revenge on all the Kaurava brothers at that point of time. So he was the one who was most agitated. He's represented as air, the strongest element. So he swore to kill all the Kaurava brothers at that point of time. So that's why air and fire, and directed fire through the chakras leads to union of Atma with the Paramatma. That's what that represents. Yes? You had a question? No. Oh, okay. Enjoying it. All right. Make sense? That is why breath is used to awake the Kundalini inside you. Pranayama. So we think pranayama is just one method, right? There are 108 different kinds of pranayama. 108. Why 108? Yeah, the prayer beads came first or the 108 came first? Yeah. So the diameter of Earth and the diameter of Sun, exactly 108. The multiplicand is exactly 108. The distance between the Moon to the Earth and the Earth to the Sun is in a ratio of 108. Okay. There are 108 points of Ayurvedic treatment in your body. The Sanskrit language has 54 alphabets, 54 male and 54 female. So the alphabet is actually male and female, both the same word, A and E. So exactly 108 again. Okay. So 108 has a very important place in Vedic system of numerology. More importantly, if you look at 1, 0, and 8, 1 stands for unity, 0 stands for the desire for no perceptions or the true reality, and 8 is infinity. When 0 takes a twist, it's infinity. That's how I look at it. I like to play with all of that, but that's 108 as well. So many things with 108. Okay. So that is the connection between all the chakras and the 100 brothers and what we use in yoga. Now, there are a couple of things that I want to touch on before we close this, and that is if, now this is in Mahabharata, right? If you are born on the Kaurava side, the path of the non-righteous, can you still attain moksha or nirvana? Suppose by birth, we say that, right? I'm genetically inclined to be bad. Can you attain nirvana? So this is represented by this warrior called Yuyutsu. He's the only warrior who survived the Mahabharata war from the Kaurava side. Now, Yuyutsu was also a son of Dhritarashtra from a servant girl, a maid servant. So he's not counted in the Kauravas, but he is the 101st brother. And he was the same age as Duryodhan and Yudhishthir. So the two guys on both the side, right? So here's a story of Yuyutsu. Dhritarashtra had a son named Yuyutsu with a Vaishya worker, clan woman. Yuyutsu was always on the path of dharma, even though he was with the Kauravas. He does defect to the Pandavas just before the war. Kind of an equal of Vibhishana in Ramayana. That's a different story. He represents the desire to give psychological battle to the bad things the mind comes up with, but is not as powerful as the ego and desires. So Yuyutsu represents that, the desire to psychologically fight the id impulses that we have, right? This shows the mind is capable of producing good thoughts, but unaided, they are not strong enough. Like even in the midst of all the, sometimes the dark things that we end up doing, the mind does produce good thoughts, but there is no effect of that. We don't carry out that, right? Yuyutsu is celebrated as a moral warrior who chose the path of righteousness in spite of being born in circumstances that predisposed him to evil. He forewent his family bonds in order to side with dharma. So this is the representation of that you can cross over to the side of dharma. It's possibility. So that's represented in the Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata as well, right? Now, Danveer Karna. Now he is the hero of the poor man, the poor man's hero in the Bhagavad Gita. Karna was the son of Kunti, Pandu's wife. So he was actually a stepbrother of the Pandavas. But he fought on the side of Duryodhan. Why? Now this is the story. When Kunti was given this boon that she could call any god and have a son with him, she was given this this boon by a very famous sage. So she thought, I don't think that really works. So she was standing by her window one day and saw the sun in the sky, and she decided to use this magic spell, right? And she called the sun god, and boom, it worked. The sun god appeared, but she was not married. She couldn't have a son, right? So there was the dilemma. So she has this son, and then she puts the son in a basket and floats it down the river. And Karna is called Sutaputra. He was brought up by uh, a person of the third Varna or fourth Varna at that point of time. And then as he grows up, he does not know who his real parents are at that point of time, but he's an equally valiant warrior because he's the son of the sun god. And when he was born, he had two things that were given by the sun god to him as a boon. What do you call it? Kavach. What is it called? Armor. So he has an armor which nobody can pierce. Even Arjuna would not have been able to kill him because he wore that armor. And he had kundala, which is 2 earrings given by the sun god to his son. So they kind of protected him. So he's called Danavir because when he grew up, he acquired the reputation of being very, very generous person. He would give you anything, right? So when the war starts, Indra, who is the sun, who's the god which Kunti called, and his son was Arjun, right? Indra knows that Arjuna cannot kill Karna. Karna is on the side of Duryodhana. So he goes disguised as a Brahmin and asks Karna to give him his kavach and kundal, the armor, as a gift. And because Karna was known for his generosity, knowing fully well that I will die in this war I can die in this war if I don't have this armor, he still gives away his kavach and kundal, his armor. Okay? Brings to mind the English term generous to a fault. That's another lesson that we learn from Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, is not to be generous to a fault so as to affect the outcome of your own life. So, existence is not making a judgment about who is good or bad. It is only social situations that try to judge people as good and bad. It is only individual human beings who try to judge you as good and bad. Existence never judges because it is not written anywhere that one thing is good and some other thing is bad. It is just that if you do the right things, the right results happen to you. If you don't do the right things do not happen to you. So in Vedic scriptures, there is no description of good and bad. So there is no good karma and bad karma. What we say is dharma and adharma, dharmic, adharmic. On the path of dharma, not on the path of dharma. Within the realms of dharma, not within the realms of dharma. Action is action, right? So this is about karna. Society may not be fair, but the existence is perfectly fair. Unless you do the right things will not happen to you. If existence was not like this, there would be no value for doing the right things or for human intelligence. Nothing that we value in our life would be valuable if you could do wrong things and still the right things happen to you. Life doesn't work like that. Well, so what happens to Karna? Karna actually went and sided with Duryodhana and supported him, right? And that's how the war happened. Now, when the fight goes on and they are shooting arrows at each other, Karna's chariot gets stuck in the battleground. The wheels get stuck in the battleground, in the muck. And he gets down to pull out the wheel from the muck, to extricate it from the muck. And that's when Krishna tells Arjuna, take the shot. And he takes the shot and he kills Karna. The wheel getting stuck in the muck is the wheel of samsara, which gets you stuck. And when you are not on the righteous path and you try to unstick that wheel, is when the world takes a shot at you. Sorry? He's already given away his armor. That is, even without the armor, he was quite a formidable general, basically. So what it says in Mahabharata is that he was as accomplished as Arjuna was in all things, basically. So that's the story of Danveer Karna. Danveer means somebody who's very, very generous. That's Karna. And that is the end of the fun part of it, of Bhagavad Gita, how it relates to life, the various characters and how much fun they had and all of that. And we have about 20 minutes or half an hour for questions, anything you want to ask, and we can talk about that and have fun generally. You have a question? Is the recording still on? Yeah, okay. I want the questions and answers also to be recorded. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed that. Yep.
From your last class, I know that Arjuna goes to hell because of what? Because of taking the shot at Karna, right?
Complete your question.
How come Krishna told Arjuna to take the shot, knowing that that action would make him go to hell?
Okay, so technically, what is said, that's what I can say. He does not go to hell. He is given a tour of hell, and then he goes on to heaven. So does the entire army, so does Karna. They all go to heaven. Why? And that is the most important part of it. Why do all of them go to heaven?
Because they did their duty.
Absolutely. So that's the one of the main teachings of the Bhagavad Gita is to do your duty responsibly in whatever has been allocated to you.
Why would Krishna advise Arjuna to do something that was not righteous?
Again, go back to that. Good or bad is
Not righteous.
not righteous. It's a war. That was his responsibility to kill. Because there are other stories on that in Mahabharata, right? So Arjuna's son Abhimanyu, he was killed in the Chakravyuh by deceit as well. So there are questions for that as well, right? So in a war, these things do happen. Actually, there are quite a few things that Krishna did, like covering up the sun to give them the impression that the day had been over, and helped Bhima kill Jayadratha. So there are a lot of stories in Mahabharata according to that. Yeah, and therefore he did earn that place or that walk to hell, as they say.
So,
You can question the entire war as being unrighteous, right?
so in applying this to like my life, if a voice a voice tells me to do something, then it's my duty to do it regardless of the results of that like the results of my, I guess, afterlife well-being, which I'm not so concerned about, but that's the thing.
Yeah. So Arjuna was given divine vision and the real explanation of who Krishna was. And after that, Arjuna followed the dictates of the higher self. So if you are totally in sync with who or what your higher self is, and the directions that are coming are actually from your higher self and not just a product of your imagination, then you are absolutely free to carry on, provided you have that connection with the higher self. And isn't that what the practice of yoga is? To be in that practice, to be sure of what are the directions of your higher self.
I guess my question is like, why didn't his higher self preserve him from ultimately suffering?
Again, go back to that. What is suffering? Once you have the realization of what sthit prana means, or what a yogi's duties are, is there any real suffering? You see, there's one important thing we all need to remember in this whole thing. We think using Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, or Karma Yoga, we are getting enlightened, right? It is said that there is no such thing as an enlightened person. There is only enlightened action. So in that moment, whatever action you perform, is it in sync with your higher self? And that is the dharmic or the righteous thing to do. Righteous thing to do is also to kill Karna, because he was destroying a lot of other soldiers too. So when you kill somebody like that, it prevents him from killing other people, right? Karna was a dangerous enemy, right?
Yeah, I don't think he shouldn't have died. And just like, I guess my mind is wrestling with the fact that it wasn't like an honorable way to kill someone, and that was like the divine voice telling him to kill him unhonorably.
Yeah, Krishna also tells him, yeah, there is a point to that. I do understand that question, and that question can come up. But Krishna also tells him in the Bhagavad Gita that you are not the doer. You are just an instrument. मैं तो बस निमित्त मात्र हूँ. I am just the instrument of the divine will. So when you follow it like that, a lot of people take it in the other way as well. Like, for example, look at the world today. In the name of divine guidance, we end up doing so many things which are, so that's the other extreme of it. But the belief that Arjuna had at that point of time was that he is just an instrument. Everything else is predestined, right? It's just a perceived reality. Yes, that young lady in the back row, the 3 rows back, that one.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
I'm trying to help with my question. I'm piggybacking. Okay. So, given the limitations of whatever my, let's say, Western, right, thing of hearing a story and divining meaning from the story, the moral, the black, the white. What does this all mean? Why did so-and-so die? All of the overarching whys, and that all being tidily wrapped up, right? I am assuming that there is sort of a skill set of understanding that can be applied to all of this that is slightly different than that like linear conception that comes from Aesop's fables or wherever else I want to, right? Um, so can you help me like implement a new way of understanding a story in order to grasp all the seemingly arbitrary contradictions in everything that we've examined, right? Because I do think that they're not arbitrary, but I have a really hard time understanding it. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it was not difficult to understand it, we would all be Satchidananda all the time. That is the practice. And any amount of explanation or reading or metaphoric explanations or comparisons will not replace the actual experience. All these are just fingers pointing to the moon, right? Ultimately, what does it say? Practice karma yoga. Practice the method of meditation, of ekagrata. Practice seeing God in everything or the divine consciousness in everything. These are the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. One, in life there are ups and downs. Learn to tolerate them. Like the seasons come and go, ups and downs come and go. Learn to tolerate them. Two, there is a reality beyond the reality that we perceive. Right? Try to connect to that. Three, follow these methods of trying to connect to the ultimate reality. We are not practicing dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga, or karma yoga just with the purpose of, oh, I am unhappy. That might be a reaction to being unhappy that we get into this. But that's not the function or the sole purpose of getting into this. On the way to this realization of yoga, we do cross this thing of, oh, I now understand what suffering is and how to control it. But that's one part of it. You see, in yoga, let me give you the example of yoga, simple. Kundalini rising. Everybody is very, very happy in the West with Kundalini rising, right? And they do this practice of awakening Kundalini, right? There is a simple fact, and any yogi will tell you that once you have Kundalini rise in you through the chakras and they pierce through the Sahasrara and crosses over, it can never go back. It can never go back. That means once you have the realization of what being in union or enlightenment, you have that experience, you can never go back. You will always remember that experience because that is now owned by you. You have embodied that. You have realized that. You will never go back. Yet in the West, every alternate month we do Kundalini rising yoga. What does that mean? Right? So, what is the ultimate aim? To have that experience, to be in that experience. Rest are all, what do you call it? Lesser fruits, low-hanging fruits, other benefits that you get from it. So Aesop's fables or Bhagavad Gita or Jataka tales, or there are so many examples, right? All of them, you see, the idea of conveying a message through stories is important because stories make things personalized. They give you a form and a name form structure to relate to. Because if somebody, this is me, I'm not talking about you, but if somebody was to tell me there is this ever-present, unchanging thing up there, and you are this little thing in here, and you need to learn to how to connect, it kind of doesn't make sense to me. See, this is about personalization of God, right? Personalization of God. In the Eastern way, God is not the ultimate reality. God is a personalization of your method to understand or embody that ultimate reality. So I follow, say, Shiva. He's got a blue body and he's muscular and he rides a bull or whatever. I like the story of Shiva and the things that he can do. So I kind of follow the method of what Shiva said to achieve that same experience. I follow the method of Krishna or the method of Rama or method of Hanuman if I'm following the method of devotional yoga or bhakti yoga. So they become idams or idols that I can look to. Praying to them is not what the Vedas taught or what they teach us. We are going through them. They are like the conduit to achieve that ultimate reality. Because end of the day, if we are talking about union, like we said, whether it is two lakes connected by something or it is all one big lake, that realization I need to have. This I, which resides in that in this body, which comprises of all the ego identity. I need to get there. Then that I changes. It becomes something else, right?
I guess then it becomes a question of, am I creating this union between myself and ultimately order, or myself and chaos?
Okay. Right now, my description of I is limited by everything that I actually know. Whatever you can ascribe to it, however much knowledge I put into this I, it is still limited. Even if I learn Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana and the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Bible and the Torah and the Talmud and all of that knowledge, still it has a boundary. The most learned of all of us still have a boundary. So this I is still limited. And all we are saying is that there is an I which exists beyond this limited boundary. There's an unlimited reality. Be comfortable with that and try to get there. You see, control, breath control, right? It's in this bubble. And you break the bubble, it's breath everywhere. No more control is needed. That's why it's called samayam, that you get absorbed into it. It's unlimited. And what is unlimited, infinite, cannot be described. And to describe that, we use these terms and metaphors and all of that to get us some sense of that and to try to connect with that. Make sense? To your limited knowledge, yes, unattainable, unless you try it. No? Why?
It just becomes a question of, am I a fool or a holy fool? But I'll be a fool no matter what.
Oh, that's a question that you can only answer yourself, because if, like I said at the beginning of this whole thing, is why do we do this? Why do we study anything? Why do we even do yoga? When you practice yoga, right? What is the intention behind yoga?
You hate me when I say this, relief.
Define relief in other words.
Energy, the cultivation of different energy, replacing one energy with another.
Okay, so replacing one energy with another energy. What is the other energy? Where does it come from? Is it possible to create that other energy artificially and give you a transfusion of that? So there is something beyond our comprehension that exists. and that we latch onto. So can we be comfortable with that fact? Well, people have done that through the times. There is certain, listen, understanding ultimate reality and responding to life the way it happens within the realms of what your responsibilities are. The Bhagavad Gita doesn't say that you achieve this ultimate reality and go run off in the jungle or go sit on the mountain. It tells you to come back to earth and do your duty that you've been assigned right here, and to live your life beautifully. It wants you to be happy, joyous, and free, right? It doesn't tell you that, oh, now that you understand this reality, go hide in a jungle cave. It's about engaging with life. That is the function of an enlightened mind, is to take care of your own responsibilities as you are on this earth, in this real world, not to escape from it. Like, I believe in non-duality. I believe in absolute reality. I can't go around and tell the government, everything belongs to me. I am the universe. Therefore, I will not pay taxes. There is that view also, right? That you could take. But that's not the idea. The idea to understand absolute reality is to relate to the duality beautifully and have it create less suffering for ourselves as we journey through this.
I think as long as you're trying as well, you feel really beautiful each time.
So Alisa said, as long as you are trying, you can't really be a fool. Okay, we are not, I'm sure Anna meant it as a joke. She's not saying that, but the path of exploring these, right? There have been people before us who have explored this path, right? If we are on this path, we can follow it and yet say to ourselves and to the world that, no, I'm not doing anything. That's one way of being too. It's like, but if you're still walking the path, you'll be fine. I mean, when you say fool, who exactly are we fooling? End of the day. Whether it is, if you believe in that absolute reality, then you're fooling who? Yourself. But that's not the idea. I mean, I understand that confusion, or Anna's question on that is like, I follow it with my intellect, but my inner core puts up a stop somewhere and prevents me from going there. And that's to do with beliefs and patternings and thought processes that we have, the software that we have installed. We spoke about this in a couple of previous classes. The software that we have needs to be uninstalled and replaced with another software, and that's the process. It can't live, the consciousness does not allow a software to be removed and nothing to remain in its presence. And it's a process. And the process is, the aware portion is only the thought portion. You see, the beliefs they belong to your unaware category, unconscious part. Thoughts, the moment they come up, you are aware of your thoughts. Expressed thoughts in terms of words or action, again go into the unaware category because you are now reacting and not responding. So the top part of it is unconscious. The bottom part of it is unconscious. The only conscious part, which is the small window of opportunity that we have, is the area when the thoughts come up. And that's why we work so hard on learning meditation. And that's why my personal focus on meditation, even during yoga. So yoga is more mental, learning the concentration part of it than physical. Physical is important. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra has got 200 plus sutras, right? Out of that, only 4 sutras talk about physical. The rest of it is all to do with the mind and consciousness. So the focus is there. That's what we concentrate on, because the thoughts are the place where we can actually work with that and replace those thoughts with different thoughts so that they go back into the belief system and change that neuroplasticity, using the mind to change the mind. Till then, we will have this issue of this works, this doesn't work, doubts come up, all of those things happen. And it's absolutely normal. As long as you're on the path, it will come around. And one day everything clicks into place and it's like, ah, beautiful. Make sense? Last question. Anybody else has anything? Michael, you good? You good?
What was that quote? That am I, is it?
That thou art.
That thou art.
Tattvamasi.
Right. I couldn't remember. I didn't think there was a thou.
Has everybody received the email from Alyssa with the last presentation? Who all have not received it here? Okay. All right. Got it. Okay. So who all have not received it here? I saw your name on that. Okay. Anyway. Okay. I got you guys. There's a beautiful shloka from Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavti bharata. Whenever there is decline of righteousness, along comes somebody like a Krishna to restore the balance of the society. That's how Krishna took his 9th or 8th avatar. All right. So with that, thank you very much. Mark, Anna, online, do you guys have any question?
Nope, I'm good. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jen. Take care. Signing off, guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. It was beautiful. Thank you so much.
I'll be awaiting your next thing on Buddhism. What's next? Let's go.
Which one? What's next?